Hello, my lovely rose garden, and allow me to say, reader beware, you're in for a scare. My name is Avalon Roselin, indie author, and your childhood nightmare for the evening. After reading multiple cozy mystery novels in a row, I needed a break. It wouldn't do for me to become too steeped in the genre and let my restlessness impact my reviews of the later books. Fortunately, there's always more horror on my shelves, and this time I reached for a nonfiction biography of children's and young adult horror master R.L. Stine. What terrors could possibly await in the personal history of so revered a horror author, responsible for so many childhood nightmares and morbid fascinations? Since this is a nonfiction autobiography of a real person, there will be no designated spoiler section in this review. I am just going to talk about this book in its entirety right out. It Came from Ohio, My Life as an Author by R.L. Stine, as told to Joe Arthur, is one part autobiography, one part writing advice. And I must note before I continue, it is incomplete. It was published in 1997, and as of over 20 years later in 2023, R.L. Stine is still alive and publishing new books. How aspirational. As for the terrifying life of R.L. Stine, I must state that by all accounts Stine's life was very normal, and that is what makes it so wonderful. Stine's voice and the lens through which he drew inspiration from everyday experiences, things that might have happened in anyone's life, is more fascinating and wondrous to me than the most dramatic backstory. For example, Stine talks about the radio shows that he listened to as a child, and one of them is the very same show that my grandparents used to play for us on tape when we went camping in my youth. Reading It Came from Ohio, I kind of felt like I was reading a blog post on Tumblr. I was struck by how much I have in common with Stine, an author I have long admired, who is quite literally older than my father. If I had met Stine when he was 30 years old as I am now, we probably would have been friends. And of course he ends every chapter with a cliffhanger to keep the reader going. I read this book in a single evening because I couldn't put it down. And the more I read, the more I cemented a new life goal. I must become besties with R.L. Stine. I actually learned a lot about Stine that I didn't know before, being a child of the 90s who grew up with Goosebumps first and foremost. For example, I hadn't realized that he published Fear Street first, or that he was more known for his comedy writing before that. These things may be obvious to someone who has done any research into Stine's life, but this was my first real foray into that research, and it was a little surprising and delightful because this book is hilarious. For the most part, the book follows Stine's life from early childhood to his current, as of 1997, life as a successful author working on Goosebumps and the heyday of the Goosebumps TV show. He shares stories about these different parts of his life, mostly as humorous anecdotes, and they do so much to paint the picture of who Stine is and how his life has impacted his work. He even makes sure to mention when certain stories or ideas that came to him ended up becoming the inspiration for his books. Inspiration comes from anywhere and everywhere in an author's life. The college chapter in particular had me laughing out loud so frequently that I had to stop my husband and read it out loud to him. And now to answer the question that in part led to me picking this book up. Does Stine write all his own books, or does he employ ghostwriters? This came up once while I was participating in a live chat on Halloween Happy's channel, and I was intrigued. This was my first attempt to look up anything about Stine, but it didn't really tell me much about him. But I can now definitively say, yes, Stine writes all his own books. In It Came from Ohio, he shares that part of how he got so fast at writing was because he spent much of his early career working for magazines, meaning he had to regularly produce publish-ready writing on a pretty tight schedule. He praises his editors highly for their contributions to his works and letting him know where he's gone too far or not gone far enough. But a Goosebumps book generally takes him like 2 weeks to finish. Maximum. Which, given how short they are and that they are mostly standalone so he doesn't have to worry about maintaining continuity, is pretty believable. The end of the book answers questions from young readers, mostly about where he gets his ideas and how to start writing. The advice he gives is pretty generic, but a good starting point for kids who might be interested in writing. If you have any interest in Goosebumps, Fear Street, or R.L. Stine's other writing, or if you're looking for a nonfiction or autobiography to read, I cannot recommend It Came From Ohio enough. It was an absolute blast to read and has given me a new appreciation for a series that I always loved as a kid and as an adult. It Came From Ohio was fun, informative, hilarious, and well-paced. A proper summary of a master of the craft. Thank you for listening all the way through this admittedly short review, and if you have made it this far, please leave me your favorite spooky emoji and tell me which Goosebumps books were your favorites. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or in the description below, please consider joining my Patreon. Your support means so much to me and allows me to continue making content. If you want to support my content in different ways, consider buying my books, donating on Ko-fi, subscribing to the channel, or even just giving this video a like and comment. Any and everything is appreciated so much. Keep growing till next time, Rose Garden!